Part 110. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 1091. Chapter 1091. You are not allowed to go out. He was stunned for a moment before he realized what she was talking about. It seemed that this incident really frightened her. He said to her warmly, "It won't hurt so much in the future. You will like it very much, I promise." She blushed again. How could she like this? However, after taking a careful look at his face, she wisely did not continue to say no. Take one step at a time, and be careful to avoid him in the future. He said that as long as she is obedient, he will not bully her. Besides, unexpectedly, she thought of the beautiful woman she saw at the door of the presidential suite that day, and what happened at the Blue Dream Club as relayed by Xiaoyu. She was not the only woman beside him, and he might not necessarily want her. Thinking about this, I felt a little sour in my heart. Pei Ziyan saw her uncertain expression and asked, "What, you don't believe it?" She shook her head in panic, not daring to continue discussing this topic, and staggered to rest with a red face. Pei Ziyan looked at her back, with a soft smile in his eyes that he didn't even notice. The biggest gain from this trip to Paris was not that the big project was negotiated, but that he owned her wholeheartedly. He let her rest. He had been busy these days. Although the project had reached the final stage, it was still complicated. Due to her accident, the progress was delayed a bit, so he took the time to deal with it. Xiaoling was bored in her room for several days. She felt too embarrassed to see anyone and couldn't leave the house. Occasionally, she feels guilty and short of breath when she calls for room service, feeling that the waiter is looking at her strangely. Although she knew it was an illusion, she just couldn't control her wild thoughts. The injuries on my body are slowly getting better. She called Xiaoyu and wanted Xiaoyu to accompany her, but she couldn't get through. Summoned up the courage to leave the suite, walked through the corridor and knocked on Xiaoyu's door, but it didn't open for a long time. But another door opened next to it, and it was Chu Chen. "Xiaoling? Are you looking for Xiaoyu?" She turned around to see this man in a suit and tie, and she couldn't help but wonder how much he knew about her and Pei Ziyan. Just thinking about it made her feel uneasy, so embarrassed that she wanted to run away immediately. Obviously, Chu Chen knew more than she thought. Deliberately turning a blind eye to the girl's shyness, he spoke in a warm voice, "Xiao has been sent away from Paris by her boss and is going back to the hospital. Do you have anything to do with her?" "Why did she suddenly go back to the hospital?" Xiaoling asked. "Is she feeling unwell?" "No," Chu Chen said, "you had an accident in the taxi that day. The boss was very angry. He found out that Xiao instigated you to return to China and found a car for you, so he decided to put her in solitary confinement. You won't be able to see her for the next 6 months. She is dead and there is no way to contact her, but don't worry, she is fine and is in good health and is being taken care of." Xiaoling finally understood what was going on. "It's all my fault," she looked at Chu Chen and said anxiously, "I want to go back to the country myself, and it has nothing to do with Xiaoyu. Please don't lock her up, okay?" Chu Chen showed a helpless expression. "You know, this kind of thing is not something I can decide." Xiaoling was silent. She suddenly heard that Xiaoyu had an accident and was confused. In fact, she also knew that only Pei Ziyan could make this decision, and no one else could shake it. "Brother Pei, how could you do this?" she whispered, feeling aggrieved again. "It's so bullying and unreasonable." Chu Chen didn't dare to say this, but instead comforted him with a gentle voice, "The boss is doing this for your own good." "He's not doing it for me," she retorted stubbornly in a low voice, feeling depressed. Chu Chen knew that she was just a child having a tantrum, so he smiled slightly and didn't take it seriously. "The weather is very nice today. Do you want to go for a walk? But don't go too far. The whole hotel has been put under martial law by the boss." You can't get out. He locked me up too. The boss is here for your safety. Xiaoling became even more unhappy, feeling irritated and turned around to leave. Chu Chen watched her go away calmly, and went to the hotel's own conference room. Pei Xian was finishing a meeting with several subordinates, and a group of people packed up and prepared to leave. Under the thick and wide glass windows, the man's tall figure was like a steady mountain, majestic and cold, making people feel awe. There was no sound in the conference room. All his subordinates did not dare to chat or laugh in front of him, so they retreated in silence and orderly. Seeing Chu Chen come in, Pei Xian handed him a report. It's just in time. I'll fax this to Secretary Zhou and ask her to process it as soon as possible. Chu Chen said calmly, yes. From the corner of his eye, he saw the last subordinate exiting the conference room, and then he said to Pei Xian, Xiaoling is finally willing to go out and go to find Xiaoyu. I told her that Xiaoyu was detained. Pei Xian strode out and asked Chu Chen, how is she feeling? Chu Chen followed him out and pressed the elevator button for him. It doesn't look good, but it's not an overreaction. I just feel aggrieved. With a ding, the two entered the elevator. First floor grieved. Chu Chen helped him press the button for the first floor, and the elevator decorated with luxurious mirrors descended smoothly and quickly. She looked like she was about to cry. Boss, why don't you coax her? She is spoiled by all kinds of problems. After a pause, he added, last time, didn't I ask you to ask Jason where there was a tailor shop in Paris, and you also took her measurements and photos to see how the clothes were made? It's already done, but the tailor refuses to deliver the goods. He says there are no such rules in their store. How can anyone deliver the goods without actually trying them on? If they don't fit, the sign will be smashed. This deeply hidden shop, this small tailor shop on the streets of Paris, is not well known but has a long history. It makes clothes for people who are really particular about it. It takes at least 3 tries to make a set of clothes, but Xiaoling never tried them on even once. Pei Xian snorted from his nose, try it on? That's not a surprise. The elevator reached the first floor and the door dinged open. Pei Xian strode out, telling Chu Chen as he walked, don't bother them, I want to see the clothes tomorrow morning. Also, give me an appointment with Wilson, and tell him that the time has been advanced, and ask him to prepare his things, and I will go there tomorrow. At the entrance to the lobby on the first floor, 2 doormen in bow ties bowed slightly and opened the door for him. A black Rolls-Royce parked quietly. The driver got out of the car and opened the door. Pei Xian's tall figure bent down and turned in. The car started and soon drove away. Chu Chen stood by the door, watched him leave, and started to make phone calls to deal with the matters he told him. Xiaoling wandered aimlessly in the hotel garden. When she wanted to go out, she was stopped by the guard at the door. The guard said to her politely but forcefully, beautiful young lady, your guardian has given instructions not to allow you to go out on the street. Please don't embarrass us. Xiaoling was disappointed and went back to her room unhappy and even more angry. There are 2 more updates today. It took more than 2 hours to write this chapter, and my hand speed is getting slower and slower. 555. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 1092. Chapter 1092 Gift. She was originally a lively and active person, but after experiencing such a big change in the past few days, she felt uneasy and couldn't hold herself in the hotel suite. The feeling of depression and suffocation followed her like a shadow, driving her almost crazy. The next day, she went to the presidential suite next door to find Pei Xian. I want to return to China. In the corridor, the morning light was dim beside the thick mahogany door. The girl, who was as delicate as a flower, looked up at him, with serious anger on her bright white face. For some reason, it just made him feel moved. He said gently, go back to the country. Go back to the country, she glared at him angrily, fearing that she would lose her courage in the next second. You locked up Xiao, and locked me here and refused to let me out. Isn't it fun? I don't care, I will go back to the country. What will you do when you return to China? You don't have to worry about it. Don't lose your temper, Pei Ziyan said, turned around. Come in. Watching him walking towards the depths of the suite step by step, Xiaoling stood timidly by the door and did not move. She still remembered what happened a few days ago and didn't dare to step into his territory. Pei Ziyan took a few steps and turned around. What, are you scared? Who yelled at me so fiercely just now? She looked like a hesitant little animal at the door, which made him pity and laugh a little. Did she know how many years it had been since no one had dared to yell at him? Do you know what happened to those who yelled at him? This girl is really brave when she is brave, but she is smaller than anyone else when she is timid. She has a look on her face as if she is facing an enemy, as if she can be eaten in just a few steps. Unexpectedly, I remembered her appearance at that time. Pei Ziyan's body felt slightly warm, and he breathed deeply and calmly to suppress the strange feeling. She was still standing by the door, not daring to come in. Pei Ziyan said, "Do you still want to return to China?" She asked uncertainly, "If I come in, you will let me go back to the country?" He couldn't help but chuckle. "Come in, and I'll take you back to China." The affairs in Paris were almost settled, and there was no difference in staying any longer. There was still a lot of things waiting for him at home, and the original plan was to set off in the next few days. Although Pei Ziyan is the chairman, he is different from the hands-off directors of other large groups. He likes to do everything himself. In charge of a behemoth like the emperor, he is naturally too busy to keep his feet on the ground. Xiaoling didn't hear the difference between let and take, so she stepped in cautiously. "The door is closed," he said. Her face was slightly nervous, and her hands and feet were stiff. He strode forward, held her small shoulder with one hand, and reached out with the other hand to close the door. The thick mahogany made a dull sound, and she trembled slightly, not daring to breathe. He lowered his head and looked at her with amusement. "Where is your courage?" The breath gently brushed against her ears, making half of her face feel like she was going to have a fever. He gently tapped her forehead in a half-leaning, half-hugging posture. The girl's skin felt smooth and clean, and a faint and sweet body fragrance spread to the tip of her nose, making people linger. Frightened, she jumped away, staggered several steps back, and bumped into a wine cabinet behind her. The dazzling array of wine bottles on the open wine cabinet began to shake. With quick eyes and quick hands, Pei Ziyan scooped her into his arms and stabilized the wine cabinet with his other hand, preventing a bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon from Latour from hitting her head. She was so shocked that she collapsed in his arms. He couldn't help but kiss her gently again, and this time whispered, "Don't move." She didn't dare to move. Her body was surrounded by him, and his breath was everywhere. It was a very strange feeling, familiar and comforting, and at the same time, dangerous and mysterious. It was hard to imagine that these two different feelings were mixed in one person, but this was the feeling Pei Ziyan gave her. Her soul seemed to be torn in two, with one half screaming and pushing him away, while the other half asked her to be obedient. In his arms, motionless. Her hands and feet were weak, her cheeks were red with embarrassment, and she could not speak. He was in a good mood and sat her down on the sofa by the window. He took a gift from the shelf and gave it to her. "Take it apart and take a look." She opened it obediently for a long time, unfolding the dark blue craft paper and layers of ribbons, revealing a dress lying quietly in the box. The dress had a faint luster in the soft morning light. "What kind of material is it made of?" "The tentacles are as soft and smooth as the gentlest water flow." She let out a small exclamation. "Do you like it?" he asked again. This time, she hesitated and nodded. "Go and put it on and let me see," he said. She went to the inner room to change as she was told, and when she came out with bare feet, she was as beautiful as a princess. The delicate and smooth fabric fit her body perfectly, outlining her looming collarbones and slender waist. As long as she moved slightly, the dress would ripple like water waves, and little bits of luster would set off her charming white breasts. The skin is even more beautiful and breathtaking, unlike those in the mortal world. Peizian's breathing was a little unsteady. When choosing the clothing material, the tailor said that this material, known as the legendary shark silk, is not suitable for everyone. If worn on ordinary girls, the smooth and soft texture will only make them look thick, dark, and ugly. Perfect. Clothing materials will magnify any small flaws infinitely. The tailor said that many famous ladies gave up unwillingly after trying this piece of clothing. But he chose this one because he had confidence in her. His Xiaoling is the most beautiful girl in the world. If she can't control this piece of clothing, then no one in the world can control it. Sure enough, this piece of clothing seems to have been woven for her. She stood there and turned around slightly, then raised her head to look at him with some joy. It's so beautiful, so beautiful. Brother Pei, thank you for giving me such a beautiful dress. He was sitting on the sofa, his face half hidden in the morning light. It's been 2 months, and it hasn't grown much. Huh, she was puzzled. This was your size 2 months ago. I asked the tailor to make it. Now it fits just right, and it hasn't changed at all. His deep voice came slowly, and his eyes fell on her. Her face suddenly turned red. I'll change it. Just dress like this. He stopped her. I said I would take you to a good place. Let's take you today before we return home. There is one more chapter. Well, speed is dead. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 1093. Chapter 1093 Rare Pink Diamond. With some uneasiness and more curiosity, she followed him into a small shop. The shop was very deep. The first floor was covered with ivy and various green plants. The steep and narrow wooden stairs spiraled to the second floor. He held her hand and sat down on the soft velvet sofa. An old man with gray hair walked out of the room, looked at them with a single gold-rimmed eye, and an elegant smile appeared on the corners of his wrinkled lips. Is this Mr. Pei? And what Mr. Chu said that beautiful lady, he said, nodding kindly to Xiaoling, and turned his eyes back to Peizian. Welcome, what would you like to drink? Tea or coffee? Tea, Peizian said, give her a glass of lemonade. The old man turned around and left. After a while, he brought out 2 drinks, put the tea in Peizian's hand, and put the lemonade in Xiaoling's hand. Mr. Chu said you like to eat sweets, the old man said to Xiaoling with a smile. Originally I prepared some candies, but Mr. Pei said they were not good for your teeth and wouldn't allow them. Xiaoling glanced at Peizian sadly. Peizian said in a warm voice, you have eaten so much sugar in the past few years that you have developed cavities. Last time I took you to the dentist and cried, you still want to eat it? If it hurts again, I will not help you find a doctor at night. A few years ago, when he was still young and had just adopted her, he wanted to pile all the good things in the world in front of her. Seeing that she liked to eat sweets, he let her eat them without restraint until she covered her cheeks late one night. He shook himself awake and cried that his teeth hurt. He took her to the dentist in his pajamas, which lasted most of the night, and he still had to worry about it for a year. Looking back on that past event, he still feels brooding about it. Xiaoling said aggrievedly, big bad guy. Her voice was so low that he didn't hear her. The gray-haired old man sat down opposite them on the sofa, across a table, and spread out a tray. The bottom of the tray is covered with a thick and dense velvet cushion, and diamonds are displayed on it. The brilliance is so dazzling that it is as dazzling as the stars in the sky, which is mesmerizing. Wow, Xiaoling exclaimed softly. Which one do you like? Pei Ziyan asked. Choose for yourself and I will make a ring for you. Make me a ring. Xiaoling was slightly startled, her heart skipped a beat, and she couldn't help but start thinking wildly. Why make her a ring? This ring, what does it mean? Her beautiful eyes looked at him without blinking. Look, I don't have a ring on my face, he said. Why did you? She swallowed, and asked with some difficulty, give me a ring. I like to see you wearing it, he said, his eyes lingering on her slightly lower chest for a moment. The scars left on her fair skin when someone snatched the diamond necklace were already very light. Xiao Yu knows how to buy what she likes. I gave you so much pocket money, why don't you buy anything? She followed his gaze and also thought about the necklace, feeling a little embarrassed. I bought a lot of things. Small hairpins on the roadside, ice cream, secretly bought candies behind my back. Last month I went to the amusement park with a group of classmates to play slot machines, and a lot of coins were eaten. He hated the fact that iron is not made of steel. Why does Xiao know how to buy it? You just buy some random things that are expensive and have good value. She felt guilty. How do you know everything? She had obviously been very careful not to tell him about secretly buying candies and going to the amusement park. There was a smile in his eyes. What don't I know about you? She lowered her head and bit her lip gently. This is not fair. What's unfair? He asked. She looked at him and took courage and said, you know everything about me, but there are many, many things about you that I don't know. What do you want to know? He asked. Pei Ziyan looked at her gently and elegantly. Because you are so good today, I will tell you whatever you want to know. She gritted her teeth and finally asked, have you ever given rings to other women? For example, the sister I bumped into that day, and there was also the woman from the Blue Dream Club. She remembered Xia Yuqian's instructions to her not to leak out the story of following Pei Ziyan, so she held back the second part of the sentence. Pei Ziyan asked, there is more. And she was a little confused and didn't dare to look at him. She moved her eyes elsewhere and made up a lie on the spur of the moment. Are there many women out there? They all said that many women are willing to be with you. Pei Ziyan was slightly startled and said with a smile in his deep voice, are you jealous? I don't mind if I have a lot of women. How could it be? What does this have to do with me? She denied it in a panic, got up and wanted to escape. Pei Ziyan suddenly grabbed her hand. Her hands were soft and delicate, a little cold in his palm, like a small piece of moist jade. He slowly pulled her back to his seat and looked into her eyes. You are jealous. The tone of no doubt. She tried hard to pull her hand away, but did not pull away. She said angrily, do you care whether I am jealous or not? What qualifications do I have to be jealous of you? I was just adopted by you, and I am not your girlfriend. What does it matter to me how many women there are? Why did you give me the ring? Just give it to them. He stared at her without speaking. Her chest rose and fell, as if she wanted to pour out all the words she had been holding in her heart for the past few days. Pei Ziyan, what do you think of me? A sister? Then why did you do that to me? A girlfriend? You're not right. I confessed. There are so many women out there. What is it that we don't know about now? What exactly is it? This was the most uneasy part of her heart. She didn't know where to put him. He remained silent, slowly took her hand, and spread her slender and beautiful fingers little by little on the table. The crystal light reflected her soft white and delicate skin, as beautiful as jade. He picked up a few diamonds with tweezers, compared them on her left middle finger, and finally selected a brilliant pink diamond. That's it, he said. Pink looks good on you. She choked for a moment and stared at him fiercely. Did he pretend that he didn't hear all the questions she just asked? Her heart felt sour and astringent, and her tears couldn't stop flowing upwards. Since so many things happened, she seemed to be crying more and more. Pei Ziyan put the selected diamonds into a separate small tray and motioned to the gray-haired old man. Fancy vivid, the old man smiled and praised in English, "Mr. Pei is really discerning. The one you selected is quite rare even among pink diamonds, type III. To be honest, this is the last one left in Paris. It's a rare treasure." End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 1094. Chapter 1094, Choice in the Dark. After deciding on the style and pick-up time, he took her out of the shop. The small streets of Paris are very quiet in summer, and the air is filled with the fragrance of unknown flowers. A Rolls-Royce stopped on the street not far ahead. Pei Ziyan said, "The car is here." He reached out to hold her hand, but she suddenly shook it off. His eyes darkened slightly and he looked down at her. She took a few steps back and said stubbornly, "Don't hold me back." He said in a deep voice, "Why are you so angry again?" Tears welled up in her eyes. "What do you mean? You bullied me and just bought a diamond ring and let it go? You clearly said that I can know anything I want to know, but you didn't answer any questions you asked. Pei Ziyan, are you? Do you treat me like those women and do whatever you want?" "Sad?" he asked. She turned her head away suddenly and said nothing. A large, slightly rough hand gently held her chin, and turned her face gently yet forcefully. She couldn't escape and stared at him fiercely. He had never seen her look so fierce. "A diamond ring that big can't shut your mouth." His voice was low and magnetic, with a hint of a smile. "You think I can just waste it because I have a lot of money? A ring worth hundreds of millions, and I don't have the kindness to do so. Give one to any cat or dog." She seemed to understand, but also seemed not to understand, looking at him uncertainly. Little fool, he was in a good mood, smiled, and gently stroked her petal-like lips with his fingertips. "I have only given you a ring in my life, are you satisfied now?" Ah, she really understood this time. Her heart skipped a beat, and then beat fast again. What else did she want to ask, but she didn't know where to start. Under his gentle gaze, she seemed to have lost all courage, and a faint blush crept onto her fair face. He took her hand. This time, she did not resist and followed him obediently into the car back to the hotel. A few days later, the two set out to return home. The training camp was still on summer vacation, so Xiaoling did not go back to school to live in, but moved into Pei Ziyan's villa. Her small bed was still installed in his bedroom, separated by a screen, and within easy reach was his big bed. She had lived in this bed for several years, but this time, she just felt embarrassed. Changed into pajamas and walked around by the screen, just not wanting to go to bed. Pei Ziyan came out of the bathroom, wearing a black silk bathrobe. "Why aren't you sleeping yet?" I. She blushed and turned her head away, not daring to look at him. "I want to move out." He frowned. "Moving out? Just change the bedroom," she whispered, feeling very embarrassed. He stopped wiping his hair, threw the towel on the table casually, and walked up to her. "What's wrong?" "I've grown up." She lowered her head and leaned her back against the screen, feeling his breath close at hand. "It's not appropriate to live with you." She recalled how Joe's mother tried her best to live with you when she moved in many years ago. Objection: it turned out that the older maid had the foresight. For a long time, I didn't hear his reply. She couldn't help but look up, only to find that he was also looking at her, with an unpredictable expression under the dim chandelier. She was so nervous that she could hardly breathe. It took a long time before I heard him speak. His voice was calm and there was no hint of emotion or anger. "What if I move out?" It was obviously a deep and magnetic voice, but it was like dropping a heavy bomb. She shuddered. remembering the scene in the car that day, which made her almost run away from him. He was like a ferocious beast examining its prey. If you don't want to be with me, why are you jealous? I don't care how many women I have I given them gifts? She looked at him in confusion, her body trembling slightly. Peizian suddenly let go of her, turned around, turned off the light and went to bed. It's up to you. If you step out of this door today, I won't stop you, and you won't care about which women I'm with in the future. If you figure it out, come here, I promise. I only love you and don't touch other women casually. She did not expect such a result. In the darkness, her heartbeat was beating like a drum. Go or stay. She had originally made up her mind to move out, but suddenly she was undecided. He was so outrageous, how could he give her such a difficult multiple-choice question? All the blood in her body was about to flow backwards, and she knew without looking that she was blushing again. Shyness, fear, and an inexplicable feeling swept through her heart. She was so scared. But what's even more scary is that he doesn't want her anymore and finds another woman. The delicate girl stood in the darkness at a loss for a long time. Peizian's deep voice came slowly, have you thought about it? She dared not speak. Peizian chuckled, are you planning to stand here all night? What about tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, and you won't sleep in the future? She said with a cry, you are too much. In the darkness, there were rustling sounds from the direction of the luxurious bed, and footsteps were coming towards her direction step by step, stopping in front of her and wrapping her in his arms. She tried hard to pull away but couldn't get away. She cried and beat him, you're too much. Her body was quickly restrained, and his strength was as strong as iron, preventing her from moving. She gradually collapsed in his arms. His deep voice came from her ears, Xiaoling, leave you to me. She cried and said, I hate you. His warm and dry hands gently touched her tears, causing her body to tremble suddenly. Xiaoling, he said hoarsely, you still have a chance to leave this room. If you don't leave, I'll take it as your default. Her mind went blank and she wanted to walk, but her legs were so weak that she couldn't walk at all. He waited for a few seconds, then laughed softly, picked her up and put her back down. Peizian, she cried and trembled. She was shaking violently, and she said intermittently, Peizian, brother Pei. Do you like me? He asked. There are 2 more updates. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 1095. Chapter 1095. She has no natal family. Xiaoling's whole head buzzed, and blood rushed to the top of her head. She still remembered the speckled marks on the sheets, which made it easy for people to know what was going on. She was so shy that she didn't even finish her porridge. She ran upstairs while Joe's mother was not paying attention, because she just didn't want to meet Joe's mother. Unexpectedly, I bumped into Joe's mother, who happened to turn around at the top of the stairs. Miss, Joe's mother was stunned. Looking at her panic, she finally understood why she was so abnormal today. Run slowly, don't fall. She blushed and didn't dare to answer at all, so she rushed upstairs in a few steps. Joe's mother looked at her retreating back, then looked down at the dirty quilt in her hand, and sighed. When she just entered their bedroom to pack her things, the unusual smell in the air made her notice something. When she opened the quilt, sure enough, what she worried about happened. The lady is naive and ignorant, does the gentleman not know the importance? She washed the bedding, made a cup of tea and served it to Xiaoling. On the small terrace on the 2nd floor, the beautiful girl was sitting on an old wicker chair, wearing a floor-length white dress, holding her chin in one hand and staring blankly. The sun shone gently on her body, lightly outlining her pale golden hair and eyelashes. She looked worried, like a lost elf. Ma Zhou sighed secretly again and put the tea on the low table next to her. Miss, drink tea. She seemed to be awakened from a dream and was startled. When she saw clearly that it was Joe's mother, she felt a little embarrassed and said in a panic, "Oh, okay." She picked up the teacup and was burned. Joe's mother said, "Be careful." She sat down next to her and said in a kind tone, "I have washed the bedding. Do you want to sleep with your husband in the future? I remember that you like the patterns of bears and light-colored small flowers. Sir's bedding is too plain. Do you want me to buy some new ones?" Xiaoling didn't expect that she would take the initiative to mention this, and her face turned red. Joe's mother smiled, "Are you sorry? Every woman has to go through this. Since it has already happened, don't think too much about it." She looked at Xiaoling's face carefully and said, "Miss, you did it voluntarily." I. Her face turned redder, and she lowered her head to drink tea in a covered manner, not daring to speak. Joe's mother is someone who has been here before, so she knew it at first glance. Okay, the girl in front of her is just shy, and there is no anger or resentment. She should be voluntary. What she was most worried about was what kind of coercive tactics Pei Ziyan used. If he didn't do it right, he would cause a big mess. Fortunately, this was not the worst-case scenario. She said kindly, "Miss, you have been brought home by your husband since you were a child. Your husband's own mother also passed away early, and there are no female elders in the family. But there are some things that still need someone to take care of them. If you don't mind it, just listen to me, an old woman, tell you a few things about our women's family." Xiaoling's face turned red, and her voice was inaudible. Okay, when she first entered the Pei family, she didn't even have her menstrual period yet, so she didn't understand anything at all. Later, when I had my first menstrual period, it was thanks to the careful care of the old woman in front of me that I gradually learned how to take care of myself. As for men and women, there were no physical hygiene classes in the training camp, and Pei Ziyan never told her about it, so even though she had slept with him, she was still confused. Joe's mother then asked, "Have you taken any contraceptive measures?" This was the question she was most concerned about. The young lady was still so young and not from a well-known family. If she had a child, there would be an uproar. Xiaoling didn't expect that she would ask this question as soon as she came up, and her face was so red that it almost bled. Joe's mother became more kind. "What are you embarrassed about? When I first got married, I didn't take any contraceptive measures and had 2 abortions. You don't know how painful it is. Women, you still have to do it yourself. Protect yourself, otherwise you will be the one who suffers in the end." Xiaoling then said in a very soft voice, "I took the morning sickness medicine last time, but this time, I didn't." Joe's mother was startled. It turned out that this was not the first time for the two of them. Her expression became serious. "When was the last time?" "The morning after pill can only be taken afterward. Even if you take it on the same day, it will be ineffective." "Miss, didn't you take any contraceptive measures last night?" Xiaolingyi frightened. I don't know." "Did you use a condom?" Xiaoling shook her head, not daring to look into Joe's mother's eyes. "I don't know." "Then, did you inside?" "What?" Xiaoling asked instinctively, and suddenly she reacted. Her face was so hot that she wanted to dig a crack in the ground and burrow in. "But, maybe." "What may be impossible, you have to pay attention to these things." Joe Ma sighed and calculated silently in her heart. These few days should be the safe period for the young lady. It is not a big problem, but to be on the safe side it is best to take a pill. Medicine. But, she took it last time. Taking too much of this medicine is not good for your health. Mr. General is really neither gentle nor serious, and he doesn't care about the young lady's body at all. Ma Zhou was very unhappy because it was a woman's hatred of each other. If the man was not her master, she would have wanted to call him a scumbag. If her biological daughter was treated like this, she would fight against the man. After all, the young lady is so pitiful that she doesn't even have a natal family. As a servant, there is really a limit to what she can do. I will go out and buy condoms for you later, Joe's mother said. In the future, even if your husband doesn't want to wear them, you have to let him wear them. You are still young, and this is not the time to have a child. If you take medicine for a long time, or if you undergo several abortion surgeries, it will cause great harm to your body, and you may not be able to conceive children in the future. She deliberately made the consequences very serious in order to attract Xiaoling's attention. Xiaoling was indeed frightened. She suppressed her shyness and nodded seriously. Zhou's mother felt relieved and taught her a lot about contraception before leaving. Pei Xian deliberately went home early today and bought a bouquet of roses to bring back. Unexpectedly, as soon as I got out of the Rolls-Royce, I was stopped by the old maid menacingly. Zhou's mother said, "Sir, I want to talk to you." Pei Xian guessed what she was going to talk about. The mess in the bedroom this morning couldn't be hidden. As a servant, Zhou's mother would definitely notice it immediately. He waved off the driver and went to a secluded corner of the garden. "Let's talk." "It's about Miss," Zhou Ma collected her thoughts, "you know how much she relies on you. She is only 16 years old and doesn't understand anything. She may think that love lasts for a lifetime. But as for you, you can't marry her. How sad and desperate will she be by then?" End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 1096. Chapter 1096. The Start of School. The shadows of the trees in the garden swayed, bringing with them a cool breeze. Pei Xian's voice was deep. "That will be a long time ago." Zhou's mother was anxious. "How far can it be? 5 years, or 10 years? Sir, those are the best years of a girl. Since you can't make a promise to her, don't hurt her." "Hurt?" Pei Xian sneered. "Mother Zhou, what is harm? If I walk in now and tell her that we are cut off, wouldn't it be harm?" Zhou Ma was silent. Something had happened and it was hard to recover. Pei Xian added, "What's wrong with her following me? I can give her the best material protection, pamper her for the rest of her life, and let her have children at the right time. She can get everything except her status." Zhou's mother trembled in her heart and asked in a low voice, "For a lifetime?" Pei Xian said, "For a lifetime." The two of them stared at each other silently in the late summer garden. Zhou's mother suddenly realized that the man in front of her was more terrifying than she imagined. Not only did he want to possess the girl, but he also never intended to let her go. Perhaps, the outcome was doomed from the first day he brought that girl home. All the love and affection were just mirages built on the thin ice. Once broken, they would fall into the abyss and be destroyed forever. But the girl knew nothing about this. What if you know it? It's just a matter of catastrophe in advance. Zhou's mother was frightened and her voice was tight. "You are not fair to the lady. She was too young and had no chance to make her own choice, so his terrible possessiveness determined the trajectory of her fate." Pei Xian chuckled. "Fairness? Only the weak talk about fairness in his dictionary. There was never a word for fairness, only wanting and not wanting, getting and not getting." "Mama Zhou, don't worry about things you shouldn't worry about," he warned his servant. "Take care of her. I want her to live without worries forever." The man's back disappeared step by step into the summer night wind. Zhou's mother's hands and feet were cold, and she couldn't imagine how sad and desperate the young lady would be one day when she knew the truth. Pei Xian slowly walked through the porch and walked upstairs. In the small music room on the second floor, the girl is holding a sheet of music and practicing singing. She has always worked hard at this, and when she debuts, she will be a blockbuster. Pei Xian stood by the door and stared for a long time. Xiaoling turned her head inadvertently and was startled. "Brother Pei," she immediately smiled, put down the music score in her hand and ran over. "When did you come? Why are you standing here, scaring me?" Pei Xian's voice was warm and gentle. "Did I bother you?" "No," she said, smiling with a crooked eyebrow. "I've been practicing all afternoon and I'm just about to call it a day." He looked at her carefully and saw a faint blush on her cheeks. "Are you feeling better? Does it still hurt?" She blinked, realizing what he was asking, and the healthy blush on her cheeks suddenly turned into a blood-red color. "No, it doesn't hurt anymore," she said softly, lowering her head and not daring to look at him. He laughed, stretched out his fingers to comb her soft long hair. "Mama Joe came to see you today." Ah, she was surprised. "How do you know?" She blushed even more and was about to run away. Pei Xian grabbed her wrist and pulled her into his arms. "What did I say to you?" Her slender waist was held tightly by one of his arms, and she couldn't break away. She fell into his arms and didn't dare to move. "No, it's nothing." She carefully looked at his face before hesitating. She said, "She asked me about contraception and bought me condoms." Under the dim light, her expression was shy and charming. Pei Xian's heart moved and he wanted to take her back to the bed immediately. He endured it for a while before saying, "Condom." She was too embarrassed to speak and lowered her head to avoid his sight. "Mother Joe is very considerate." There was no emotion or anger in his voice. Xiaoling mustered up her courage and asked, "Can you use it?" "Mother Joe said that taking medicine for a long time is bad for your health and you won't be able to have children in the future. You want me to use it?" She was at a loss for words again. It was so annoying. How should she answer such a question? He stretched out his hand to lift her face. "I've never used this before." A low and ambiguous tone brushed against her ear like a filament. He had never used prostitutes in the past. He always had someone to watch them take medicine afterward. Only once did something go wrong, and the unscrupulous woman was forced to the hospital to have an abortion, and she ended up miserable. This little girl actually wants him to use this? Xiaoling's eyes were watery, and she felt as if she was about to cry. Joe's mother said that this was the best contraceptive method, and other methods were either unsafe or would cause great harm to the body. Does he, don't care? Looking at the little girl who was about to cry, Pei Xian said warmly, "I'll make an exception for you." She was startled, then burst into tears and smiled. "I knew Brother Pei was the best." Her smile was like sunshine breaking through dark clouds, lighting up the whole world. Pei Xian looked at her smile and was distracted for a moment. The two of them went downstairs to have dinner. During the night, he was extremely gentle to her. "I don't want to hurt her, but more importantly, she is different from other women. In the future, when he marries a well-known wife and gives birth to a legitimate son, she will also give birth to his child. He will protect her body well and leave no room for error." The summer vacation passed quickly and it was time for the training camp to start. Xiaoling reluctantly said, "Brother Pei, I can only see you in a few days." Pei Xian dressed her and carefully combed her long, shiny hair with a horn comb. "You refuse to go to school as a day student. If you miss me, you can always go to the Emperor to find me. Anyway, they all recognize you now. No one dares to stop you." Over the years, Xiaoling has gone to the Emperor company many times. Everyone knows that this stunningly beautiful girl was adopted by the chairman, and will not embarrass her at all. Incidents similar to what happened to Li Binjiu a few years ago will never happen again. Xiaoling nodded. "Then you must remember to miss me." He laughed, "Of course." And the beautiful girl tilted her head and hesitated to speak. After struggling for a long time, she couldn't help but said, "You promised me not to be with other women. You must keep it." "This girl is thinking about this very much." Pei Xian deliberately teased her, "Are you jealous again?" "No," she blushed, becoming more and more shy since being with him. "No," he said slowly, "then why?" "You're so annoying." She jumped off the stool and ran downstairs with a blushing face, not daring to look at him anymore. Peizian had a gentle smile shining in the depths of his eyes. He put down his comb and walked downstairs slowly. There was a Rolls-Royce parked in front of the villa. He got into the back seat of the car and saw her already sitting there. Seeing him come in, she snorted and turned her head to look at the scenery outside. There are 2 more updates. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 1097. Chapter 1097. Everyone wants to curry favor with her. Peizian stretched out his hand and took her delicate, white little hand into his palm. She struggled but failed to break away, so she had no choice but to let him hold her. The scenery outside the car window flashed by, and soon they arrived at the entrance of the training camp. Xiaoling said softly, "Let go, I'm getting off the car." Peizian did not let go. "I promise you." She looked at him puzzled. Peizian smiled and said, "Jiangzi, I promise you not to touch other women until you get home." She suddenly blushed again and glanced at the driver in the front seat. The well-trained driver was sitting upright, obviously hearing everything, but it seemed like he heard nothing. Xiaoling spat softly, "Who wants you to wait?" "Really not," he still laughed. She bit her lip and stretched out a little finger, "Pull the hook." The delicate white little fingers were held together with his warm and dry hand, and they shook it, as if they had made a lifelong vow. She jumped out of the car lightly, waved to him through the glass, and walked toward the school humming. Along the way, many people looked at her secretly. One trainee grabbed his companion and whispered, "Did you see that Rolls-Royce belongs to Chairman Pei? He's here to see off Xiaoling again. Wow, I wonder if the chairman is in the car. She must be there, she was waving at the car window just now. I'm so happy. I'm obviously an orphan, but I don't know what kind of luck I got to be adopted by the chairman. I won't have to worry about food and drink in this life, and I can still be famous." The trainees admired, and they didn't know that they could do it even though many people worked hard to survive. When Fu debuted, Xiaoling's star was shining brightly. "I heard that the best resources in the entire emperor were being mobilized for her, just waiting for her to learn how to debut and work hard to build her. Poor Li Bingman, who is at the same level as her and is squeezed everywhere." Xiaoling knew nothing about these discussions. After returning to the dormitory and putting away her things, she went to her own exclusive practice room to practice. This practice room was originally a classroom for the elite class. Xiaoling came here once and thought it was very nice. The large mirrors on 3 walls and the floor-to-ceiling windows on 1 wall were beautiful. The floor-to-ceiling windows faced a quiet grove. There are many flowers, green shade in summer, long grass in autumn, and snow falling in winter. She said to Peizian, "I am so happy to be able to practice here. I feel very good just walking in." As a result, this practice room was closed to the outside world and transformed into her exclusive space. Xiaoling thanked Peizian happily. The entire elite class was envious, but they dared not speak out. They even had to congratulate Xiaoling with a fake smile on getting such a good practice place. Who wants someone to have a backstage? Not only this practice room, but also several nearby classrooms and groves were closed. Peizian ordered people to pave a gravel trail, which leads all the way to the artificial lake. There are tables and benches for resting on the edge of the trail, turning the place into a small private garden. She made rapid progress by practicing singing and dancing here. She was in a very good mood. Seeing this beautiful scenery, she remembered how good Brother Pei was to her. She must also study hard and strive to make her debut as soon as possible and become famous in order to repay Brother Pei's love. Determined, she worked harder. Practice a few pronunciation and dance moves, and it's noon before you know it. Li Bingman was wearing training clothes that she had not yet had time to change into. She hurried over with a food box, spread the tablecloth and set the tableware on the stone table in the garden, and then stood outside Xiaoling's practice room and waited for several minutes. After one of her dance moves came to an end, she spoke softly, "Xiaoling, it's time to eat. Today the cafeteria made your favorite smoked salmon, and the dessert after the meal is mango pudding." Ever since she was subdued by Xiaoling in the first grade, the task of delivering meals has always fallen on her. At first, Li Bingman was extremely reluctant and felt that this job was hard, tiring and embarrassing. But gradually, this job became a hot topic, and countless students in the training camp rushed to help her do it. At first, Li Bingman felt that she was extremely attractive. Until one day, her sister Li Binjiao, who knew about this incident, scolded her angrily, "You are stupid. Do you know why they rushed to deliver food to Xiaoling? I heard that the chairman had doted on that girl a long time ago. By the way, last month, just because she wanted to experience what it was like to be in a movie, the chairman withdrew the heroine from such an important film as A Long Song in Troubled Times and asked her to take the lead. Who knew that the eldest lady had played two roles? She was tired of it and gave up her job. Directors as big as Zhang Ziqiang even made her cry, saying that they couldn't find actors at the moment and couldn't keep up with the schedule. However, Xiaoling casually recommended Xiaohua. What kind of thing is Xiaohua? She is just a young trainee. She became the heroine of such an important movie directly because of her casual recommendation. She will be starring with popular male stars. Just wait, Xiaohua will become a big star when the movie is released. Purple. Li Bingman was unconvinced. It's just a coincidence. What does that mean? Li Binjiao was so angry that she wanted to beat her up, by chance. There are so many powerful actors in the training camp, why don't others appear? Let me tell you, how many people are eyeing this film, and how many first-line actresses want to be in it. You really can't find anyone as director Zhang? He just doesn't dare to offend Pei Xian. He has to retain Xiaoling. Later, Xiaoling recommended Xiaohua to him, but he dared not use it. Li Bingman muttered, "That's because Xiaohua's acting skills have passed the test. She can be in the top 10 in the elite class. What about you? You are the first in the elite performing arts class, why didn't you take the turn?" Li Binjiao almost wanted to curse, Bingman, I told you a long time ago, put away your self-esteem. In this circle, the least valuable thing is self-esteem. The most valuable thing is connections. No matter what method you use, as long as you can curry favor with Xiaoling, if someone leaks some resources from their fingers, you can skyrocket." Li Bingman was scolded by her sister, and then she realized the seriousness of the problem. She spent a lot of effort to take back the right to deliver meals to Xiaoling. She was cautious every day and worked hard to do what she had done before. Reluctant work. She was still angry in her heart. Why did Xiaoling have such a good life? His acting skills are so bad, but he can decide life or death casually. At this time, standing in front of Xiaoling's exclusive training room, looking at the girl stretching her limbs gracefully in the empty room, Li Bingman felt full of jealousy. Xiaoling heard her voice and turned around, "Is it time to eat so soon?" Li Bingman put her acting skills into play, with a warm and friendly smile on her face, "You've been practicing too hard, Xiaoling, and you don't even know when it's time to eat. Your health is important, come and eat, I've laid out the table for you." End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 1098. Chapter 1098. It's easy to offend people. Xiaoling put on a thin shirt and came out to have dinner with her in the small garden. This is also the reason why many trainees are trying hard to deliver food to her. If they can dine together, there will be countless opportunities to enhance their relationship. What if they accidentally become best friends or lovers? It will become developed in the future. Xiaoling didn't know what they were thinking, she just assumed that everyone liked her. She also likes to dine with them. Eating alone is too lonely, and she has a lively temperament. After not seeing her for a whole summer vacation, Li Bingman prepared many topics that interested her and told her one by one, "Do you still remember the pigeons at Qianggu Lake? I went there once during the vacation. Several new varieties have been introduced, and they look really good. When can I take you to see them together?" Xiaoling was a little absent-minded, "Let's talk about it later." She was still thinking about the dance practice she had just done. When the last big roll of Cloud Gate fell to the ground, her ankle was a little unstable. She didn't know if it was a problem of strength or fulcrum. While I was thinking about it, I heard Li Bingman say, "My sister's new song is on the market. This time, Yunyan is far behind. Have you listened? Everyone said it sounds good. My sister said that I can give you a hardcover version." "Stop making noise," Xiaoling interrupted her chattering, feeling a little irritated. Li Bingman fell silent for a moment. She didn't know what provoked her, and she didn't dare to make any mistakes. Looking at her carefully, Li Bingman lowered her head to eat the rice, even moving the chopsticks gently, for fear that she would get angry again. Xiaoling didn't pay attention to her at all. She was still thinking about the dance in her mind. She used her chopsticks to pull a few vegetables to simulate the distance and landing point. Li Bingman didn't know at first and wanted to pick them up, but she gave her a hard slap with her chopsticks. Li Bingman simply stopped eating to avoid provoking her again. Watching her swipe back and forth on the dining table, she gradually realized that she was pondering some action. "Where are you practicing dancing?" Li Bingman asked carefully. "What kind of difficulty have you encountered? Do you want to tell me and I can help you refer to it?" "Yunman Dejuan, I jumped over like this, but the landing point." Xiaoling frowned slightly and pulled a few more vegetable leaves. "It's not right, it's still wrong." Li Bingman was confused. "You danced very well just now." It was better than the teaching version the teacher showed that day. On the one hand, it was true that Xiaoling danced well, but on the other hand, Li Bingman also flattered her. Unexpectedly, this flattery hit the horse's feet. Xiaoling sneered, "Does this mean you can dance well? You learned the dance in vain." She felt a little regretful, so why did she tell Li Bingman the difficult problem? Her teachers and classmates were increasingly unable to help her. For example, with regard to the Cloud Gate scroll, she could only slowly explore it on her own, because it seemed perfect to outsiders. Forget it," she became more irritated and put down her chopsticks. "I won't eat. I'm going to practice dancing first." Just when she got a clue, she was interrupted by Li Bingman's chirping. She was afraid that she would eat everything in one meal. "Cannot remember." Li Bingman was feeling angry, but on the surface she could only smile dryly and said, "Then go ahead. You are the best dancer. All the trainees in this generation are counting on you to grow in appearance." When Xiaoling heard this, she paused and frowned. "Why are you so unwilling to make progress? What do you mean by expecting me to have a good face? Whether you can surpass me is another matter, but if you don't even have the intention to surpass me, why are you still here? What are you doing here? Is this your attitude towards basic skills? You and your sister." As she talked, she involved Li Bingman's sister. "Li Binjiu occasionally has a song that surpasses Yunyan and thinks it's great. I listened to that song, and I couldn't even find the original key after repairing it. Instead of 'it's better to say that Li Binjiu is a big seller,' it's better to say that the music editor is a big seller." Haha, she sneered. "Li Bingman, can you sisters stop being so shallow? Such a leader is simply a disgrace to the emperor. All I want to do is become better and live up to Brother Pei's cultivation. In conjunction with this, he also has high demands on the people around him. He only hopes that emperor will get better and better, and that emperor's artists will become more and more powerful. However, she was furious when she saw Li Bingjie, the current leading actress, and Li Bingman, a newbie with potential in the future. How could they help Brother Pei develop the emperor at such a level? She deliberately encouraged Li Bingman with a few words, but she didn't realize that her words were a bit harsh. Li Bingman lowered her head and remained silent. After hearing her scolding, she forced a smile and said, "Yes, Xiaoling, what you taught me is that my sister and I will definitely improve." Xiaoling snorted and turned around to enter the practice room. Li Bingman was left in no mood to eat alone. She slowly cleared up the mess on the table, with a hint of vicious hatred in her eyes. Xiaoling practiced dancing for another hour and finally solved the problem of Yunman's big role. Then she wiped her sweat and stopped to rest. After stopping, she felt hungry. I opened the door and planned to find something to eat. Unexpectedly, I met a person in the small garden after walking a few steps. He was wearing a linen casual shirt, leaning against an ancient tree, holding a cup of blue and white tea in one hand. Looking at her with a smile. She recognized that person, Brother Feng Kun. The man under the tree was Feng Kun. He raised his chin to indicate that he was not far away. "Are you hungry? I brought you pastries with rose almond filling. Don't tell the chairman, he doesn't allow us to bring you sweets." Xiaoling smiled, "I know." He jumped up and ran over, opened the box of beautifully packaged cakes, and took a bite. The soft and smooth taste melts in the mouth, full of fragrance. She narrowed her eyes in enjoyment and took several more bites before she could talk to Feng Kun. "Brother Feng Kun, why are you here?" Feng Kun is different from Chu Chen. He doesn't usually follow Pei Ziyan. He has his own recording studio to take care of, so he actually has very little time to see her in person. If Pei Ziyan hadn't considered having Feng Kun produce her debut song, the two of them might not have seen each other 2 or 3 times a year. Feng Kun smiled, "I made a few new pieces of music for you. You can feel it and pick the one you like best. In fact, I was here a long time ago. I saw you and the little girl eating, so I didn't bother you." "She is Li Bingjie's sister." "Yes, you saw them during the selection exam," Xiaoling replied absent-mindedly. The pastries were so delicious. She stretched out her hand while eating them and said, "Give me the music score." Little workaholic Feng Kun gave her the sheet music he brought. "Read it slowly, don't be in a hurry." She nodded, yes, but she opened the music score on the spot, with no intention of reading it slowly. Feng Kun said, "You can easily offend people like this." "Huh?" She raised her head, with a confused look on her face. Feng Kun pointed to the score in her hand. "You don't seem to take other people's words to heart. You did the same to Li Bingman just now. I think she was going to cry when you scolded her. You are not afraid of her holding a grudge." Although the two of them still, he wasn't familiar with her, but he admired this girl who had outstanding talent and was willing to work hard, so he couldn't help but give some advice. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 1099. Chapter 1099 Miracle. But Xiaoling curled her lips and whispered softly, "What I said is the truth. This girl is so beautiful, even her little willful movements are pleasing to the eye." Feng Kun smiled and suddenly felt that some people are born with the capital of arrogance. Perhaps it is because of her innocence, straightforwardness, lack of harmony and imperfection that she can achieve such high attainments in music. However, he still said, "This circle is not easy to mix in. You have to be merciful and merciful." Xiaoling was not very happy. It depends on what happened. Li Bingjie is really getting worse every year. In the first 2 years, I could still listen to her singing, but now she relies more and more on music repair. If she continues like this, she will become garbage sooner or later. I really don't understand, why is she so proud of selling such a record? How can she be replaced by a random guy on the roadside and a good sound engineer? It makes Li Bingman not want to make progress. Feng Kun laughed again. I just said one sentence, which can lead to such a long list of words from you. Xiaoling glared at him lightly. Brother Pei said that you are the emperor's best music producer. Are you like them? Do you agree with those methods? Feng Kun said, I don't agree, but they have their own reasons. Over the years in the entertainment industry, he has seen a lot of turmoil in the world, and the fights between female stars are particularly brutal. Even though they are enjoying great glory today, they can be shattered to pieces if they are not careful. To secure a place in this bright starry sky, it is not enough to just rely on singing and acting skills. What is more important is connections, luck, family background, beauty, etc. The efforts that celebrities spend on this are by no means more than less honing of skills. For example, Li Binjiao comes from an ordinary self-employed family. She has no money and no power and cannot hope for anything. She has to muster 120,000 points to manage herself. Dealing with partners, dealing with reporters, and dealing with all kinds of men and competitors around you who are eyeing you, after so many years, you are exhausted. Where do you find the time to think about your singing skills? It is normal for voice condition to deteriorate as we age. In fact, Li Binjiao has worked hard to retain her current position as Queen of Heaven, which is admirable. But Xiaoling doesn't understand these things. The girl's thinking is very simple. No matter what the difficulties are, you can't blaspheme the music. That is deceiving the fans and is irresponsible. Seeing the serious look on her face, for some reason, Feng Kun just wanted to tease her. The fans can't understand it anyway. Why do you think Li Binjiao's new song is selling so well? The fans don't understand at all. Xiaoling was speechless. After thinking about it carefully, she felt that what he said made sense and she was unable to refute. Are you that kind of producer? She asked after a long while. What? He said. Let me ask you, are you that kind of irresponsible producer? The girl's pretty little face tightened and asked, if you are, don't produce my songs. I don't like you. Attitude. Feng Kun stared at her very interestingly. Little girl, do you know how many people are crying and begging me to compose songs for them? It was she who was raised by Pei Zion in the Garden of Eden and could not eat the fireworks of the world, so she could easily reject. Xiaoling snorted, no matter how many people beg you, what does it have to do with me? Feng Kun narrowed his eyes slightly, looked at her for a long time, and suddenly said, I want to ask you a question. She frowned, what? Feng Kun looked at her for a while and said, forget it. Xiaoling's brows furrowed even more tightly. Why is this person so inexplicable? You haven't answered my question yet, she said unhappily. Are you the kind of producer who disrespects music? Feng Kun grinned, can't you hear it? You listen to my music with your heart, little girl, the answer lies in your heart, Feng Kun said, pointing to the stack of music scores in her hand. Remember to give me an answer after reading it. Do you want to cooperate with me or another person? Looking for someone else, he put it in his pocket and walked away slowly in the warm sunshine of late summer and early autumn. Xiaoling was left alone, staring at his back, speechless. Who is it? Really? Snored. It was not until many years later that Xiaoling, who had become a super queen, chatted with her gold medal partner Feng Kun about the conversation that afternoon. Feng Kun smiled lightly and said, Pei Zion is choosing a producer for you, and I am also choosing a singer for myself. If you can't satisfy me, even if he threatens you, I will refuse. Then have I satisfied you? The beautiful queen asked, holding her chin. Feng Kun said, yes, I wanted to ask you that day. If one day you are reduced to nothing, will you not change your original intention for music? In fact, Lee Binjai and the others became like that just because they have too little and want what they want too much. You are luckier than them because you have Pei Zion, who has shielded you from so many storms and allowed you to focus on pursuing real music. I don't know if you will have the courage to persevere once you leave him. The beautiful queen blinked. Why didn't you ask at that time? Feng Kun's tone was gentle and quiet, like a cup of warm tea in the afternoon. It's not necessary. It's not necessary. Xiaoling was startled for a moment, then smiled peacefully. Yes, it's not necessary. He is so good to me, how could he leave me? We will always be together. The sunlight gently brushed on her fair and smooth face, like a dream. But Feng Kun said, Xiaoling, I said it's not necessary because even if you leave him, you still have the strength and courage to continue living well. You will always be the best. Xiaoling didn't care. I already told him that I would never leave him. We will grow old together. Feng Kun sighed in his heart and couldn't bear to tell her that the old man of the Wang family had already brought Wang Jingguan to visit Pei Zion's uncle. It is said that the two families had a very happy conversation and had exchanged birthdays and horoscopes. They were just waiting for the calculation results to come out. If there was no punishment, they would choose a date to get engaged. She has always been kept in the dark. Since she was a teenager, she had trusted him without reservation. 16-year-old Xiaoling stood in the sunshine of late summer and early autumn, frowning as she read Feng Kun's music score. As she looked at it, her brows relaxed slightly. His music score was so well composed, with vivid rhythms and natural sounds. Every melody is exciting. Stunningly talented and beautiful. Feng Kun is right. As long as she listens to his music with her heart, the answer will be in her heart. The producer of her debut song was decided in this way. After more than a year of polishing, she made her debut and became an instant success. As soon as the debut song called Miracle came out, it quickly became popular all over the country. Everyone in the streets was talking about this song and the miraculous beauty of this girl who was born out of nowhere. Countless media outlets are exclaiming. The emperor's head Huadan is about to change hands, and the name Xiaoling will eventually shine high in the bright starry sky. There are 2 more chapters. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 1100. Chapter 1100 Celebration Banquet. Pei Zion held a celebration banquet for her. Her favorite lakeside club was booked, and she invited the emperor's most popular stars, as well as heavyweight music producers, directors, company executives, teachers, and classmates from the training camp. All the stars and big-name celebrities gathered together. Among so many important figures, she was the only one who was the protagonist tonight. She was wearing a specially customized little dress. The soft and thin gauze seemed to cast a layer of rosy morning light on her body. Her smile was more moving than the roses, and her eyes were flowing, looking at the city. The actress side is about to change. Ji Liangping, the great actor under Chu Chen, held a glass of cocktail in his hand, looked at Xiaoling from a distance, and said to his agent with a half smile. Chu Chen smiled, "You are a male star, what are you afraid of?" He also took a glass of wine from the passing waiter and enjoyed the undercurrent of the banquet with the movie star holding the award in his own hand. The actresses all smiled like flowers and said congratulations to Xiaoling. However, as soon as they turned around, the expressions on their faces were uncontrollable. Some of the unruly ones couldn't help but show hostility. It's no wonder that the same company only has those resources. If you give them to Xiaoling, you can't give them to others. She is so beautiful, sings well, and is extremely favored by the big boss. Who else will have a share of future resources besides her? I'm afraid even the emperor's 2 most popular actresses, Li Binjai and Yun Yan, can only use her to choose the rest. Who can bear this tone? But, So what if you can't bear it? The world is so cruel. It's not that whoever works harder will get more rewards. Some girls are just lucky and don't need to work hard to climb up. They don't even need to play tricks. As long as they smile gently and skillfully, others will ask for everything. Everything you can't ask for is at your fingertips. I'm a little jealous. Ji Liangping played with the cocktail in his hand and said to Chu Chen. Chu Chen warned him, don't provoke her. I'm not that desperate. Ji Liangping smiled, by the way, does she have a boyfriend? Chu Chen glanced at him, you don't call this death? Let me tell you one thing. Last year, a boy in the training camp wanted to chase her. He imitated Korean dramas and pressed her against the wall and forced her to kiss him. As a result, his hand was broken. Broken. It's broken. Whichever hand you press on will be broken. Although the bones were later sent to the hospital to be repaired, the piano player who was good at playing the piano was completely ruined as soon as this happened. Ji Liangping's eyebrows twitched. Who did it? You would never think that she was the one who broke someone else's hand. Ji Liangping stopped talking, and his face became a little ugly. After a long time, he breathed out softly, the big boss is really cruel. Chu Chen knew many more things than he did, and he didn't want to see the actor he had worked so hard to win lose on such a thing, so he said coldly, ambition is a good thing, Ji Liangping. In fact, I have always admired your ambition. I won't care about you if you sleep with Pei Jingyu, but Xiaoling, remember. Ji Liangping lowered his eyes, I remember. Also, don't let Xiaoling know about the boy's broken hand, Chu Chen said. Ji Liangping's eyebrows jumped again, yes. It seems that she is entangled with more secrets than they imagined, and her weight in the big boss's heart is heavier than all of them imagined. Ji Liangping was very glad that his agent was Chu Chen. This was the importance of having a good agent. Some information could only be collected with Chu Chen's status, and he would not be foolish enough to violate those taboos. Walking around the world, there are pitfalls everywhere. Xiaoling had a great time at the banquet. Many big stars, famous producers, and directors came to talk to her. Everyone's topics were very interesting and they praised her without hesitation, which made her feel better and better. The more flying. Unconsciously, I drank a lot of wine. Chu Chen patted Ji Liangping on the shoulder and left him to take care of Xiaoling. Xiaoling, you can't drink anymore. Xiaoling's drinking capacity was not good and she drank several cocktails in a row. She was a little dizzy at this time. She looked at Chu Chen and smiled stupidly. Chu Chen, where is Brother Pei? I just heard a joke. I tell him. Chu Chen asked the waiter for a cup of hangover tea and coaxed her to drink it. The boss has something to do and he will take a call. He will be back soon. I will help you sit in a sheltered place while you chat with Yunyan and the others. Can you have some snacks? This little ancestor is extremely difficult to take care of. Sometimes Chu Chen feels that all his patience has been spent on her alone. He was a little frightened when he thought that Pei Ziyan planned to send him as her exclusive agent. Sure enough, the little ancestor lost his temper again, liar. He has been gone for a long time, and he has never been seen since dancing with me. What did he do? There are so many delicious things, and he doesn't come to accompany me. I eat. Chu Chen coaxed him nicely, he's really busy. Having half dragged and half supported her to sit on the sofa by the window, she was in a drunken state, her hair on her temples was slightly disheveled, and the light silk ribbon on one shoulder slipped a little, revealing a small piece of white and soft skin. Chu Chen, one with two heads, was looking for something to cover her all over the world when he saw a hand handed to her. Don't freeze her, use my shawl. It was one of the emperor's leading actresses, Yunyan. Wearing an elegant fishtail gown, looked at Chu Chen with a smile, holding a finely woven tassel shawl in his hand. Chu Chen took it and said, thank you. Yunyansi sat down next to them, I will take care of you here. Brother Chu, Go and do your work. Many thoughtful people wanted to find opportunities to get close to Xiaoling. They had long seen that this girl was innocent, and they always wanted to win her favor. It is much easier than winning Pei Xian's favor, and he will not hesitate to take a shortcut to fame and fortune. Chu Chen naturally understood what she was thinking. Warning, she is delicate. She won't be able to do anything even if she is cold or hot. Don't let her sleep on the sofa for too long. When she wakes up, she will definitely be clamoring for a drink or dessert. You should watch carefully. The boss does not allow her to eat too much. Many. Yunyan pursed her lips and smiled. I understand. Isn't it just to take care of a little girl? Nothing is difficult. Yunyan has a little niece at home, who is lively and laughing like Xiaoling. She takes care of her easily, so she doesn't take Chu Chen's words to heart. Unexpectedly, she miscalculated this time. Xiaoling slept for less than 5 minutes and woke up somehow. She looked at Yunyan in confusion for a long time. Who are you? Yunyan almost fainted. Xiaoling, I am your sister Yunyan, you just talked to me. Xiaoling tried hard to identify him for a long time, then said oh and said unhappily, where's brother Pei? It's been all night, why hasn't he come back yet? Oh, 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 you don't want me when you have a phone. End of this chapter.